esteemed panel of experts, policymakers, and farmer leaders to be able to address the topics related to those areas I've just mentioned. So our objectives basically to be able to analyze those critical issues at hand and explore sustainable strategies that can uplift the livelihood of smallholder farmers, foster economic growth, and also transform agriculture across the continent. So we want to have some key messages that underscore the urgency of a comprehensive support mechanisms for farmers with regard to access to climate financing, but also the pivotal role the local production plays in terms of food security and nutrition, and also the necessity for African government to be able to adopt and implement policies that foster an enabling environment for sustainable food systems. So in this session, which I moderate the first part of it, we want to advocate for solutions that empower farmers to navigate resilient times and unlock their potential. So we also want to collectively contribute to a prosperous and a food secure future for Africa. So without taking much, I would like that we start with a keynote speech delivered by His Excellency Mzengo Kayanza Peter Pinda, the former Prime Minister of Tanzania. So Your Excellency, you are most welcome.
Mpo wa kutosha? Wakulima? Okay, if you're available then thank you. Development partners, private sector representatives, the AGRA partners, members participating online, AGRF local organizing committee, journalists, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. First and foremost, let me say that this occasion was supposed to have been blessed by the Prime Minister himself, Kassim Majaliwa. But unfortunately, he ended up with some other commitments. So he decided to send me to come and take over what he should have done. In a way, I'm also happy that I'm here. I'm a small farmer. I work very closely with cooperatives. So it's also a good opportunity for me to learn more about this serious issue that we are confronted with. Having said that, let me go straight and thank my Almighty God for granting us or enabling us to be able to attend the AGRF Summit 2023 and discuss matters of interest for the prosperity of our good continent, Africa. I also take this opportunity to extend my gratitude to the AGRF Organizing Committee for inviting me to this important event. I feel greatly honored to be part of such a historical event that marks a tuning point of our initiatives to transform food systems in Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, it has also come to my attention that today I'm here to speak on the role of cooperatives in advancing prosperity, but also food security in Africa. Indeed, the choice of the theme is quite reflective, particularly when one thinks of what is the importance of cooperatives when dealing with food systems. Taking stock of values of cooperatives, namely self-help, self-responsibility, democracy within it, equality, equity, and solidarity. All together, they build a self-reliant community of farmers with equal rights for all members. This is crucial for Africa, that is dominated by smallholder farmers who produce at subsistence level, operate in isolation with limited access to resources and are vulnerable to climate change as well. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, as you might be aware of, in Africa, farmers play vital roles in food systems, including production, harvesting, storage, processing, and marketing. About 33 million smallholder farmers in Africa contribute 70% of the food that we eat daily. Across Africa, a number of people who are experiencing food insecurity, which has increased from 512 million in 2014 to 794.7 million in 2021, which is nearly 60% of the continent's population. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, despite the roles farmers play in Africa's food systems, yet they still face many challenges, such as poor access to farm inputs, finance, market, and modern technologies, which can easily be unlocked if we take advantage of dealing with the challenges relating to cooperatives. We improve cooperatives, we are sure many of these so-called challenges will just melt away. Cooperatives are entities which have a long history in Africa as people-centered enterprises owned, controlled, and run by and for their members in order to realize their common economic, social, and cultural needs as well as aspirations. Cooperatives can be transformed to serve as economic entities for poverty alleviation, based on the core values of transparency, self-responsibility, democracy, and equity. In the agriculture sector, cooperatives can be the means for common production system, source of employment, and entrepreneurship. Thus, through cooperatives, farmers and the rural life in general can be transformed within a short time if we can manage to deal with cooperatives properly. Cooperatives have an instrumental role in the realization of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, and their targets. Specifically, cooperatives have critical roles in pointed out earlier, in eradication of poverty or reduction of hunger, contributing to ensuring healthy lives, ensuring quality education, achieving gender equality, providing decent jobs, addressing climate change, and promoting inclusive and sustainable industrialization. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, out of 1.3 billion people in Africa, 7 persons out of 100 are members of cooperatives. The low membership is caused by, among others, inadequate awareness, restrictive policy, and unfriendly legal environment. Hence, there is need to address these challenges in order to enhance and increase the membership of those people who are interested in the cooperation. Another area where cooperatives have opportunities to harness economic benefits is through the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. There are diverse legal and policy instruments adopted by the African Union seeking to guide cooperative development, which are yet to be fully exploited by member states. I call upon African member states to exploit the available instruments in order to reap the benefits from the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, food insecurity is a critical challenge facing most parts of the African continent. However, the continent is rich in resources such as arable land, water, and human capital, which are yet to be optimally utilized. Therefore, cooperatives could be utilized as a vehicle for combating food insecurity in the African continent. In Tanzania, cooperatives serve as a vehicle for access to finance from commercial banks at an affordable interest rate. Tanzania has 4,712 agriculture and marketing cooperative societies. We call them shortly as AMCOS, which is 58% of all registered cooperative societies. In 2021-2022, commercial banks supported about $217.4 million to 1,800 AMCOS for farm inputs, processing, and storage facilities. During the same period, 2,034 saving and credit cooperatives extended a loan of about $782.6 million, out of which 70% was allocated to investment in agriculture enterprises. In addition, in 2022-23, cooperative societies in the agriculture sector engaged in trade of 1,826,850,000 metric tons of cashew nuts, coffee, tobacco, simsim, cocoa, sisal, tea and pigeon peas, soybeans, common beans, sugarcane, as well as grapes, worth $760.8 million. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me, in conclusion, and in order for the cooperatives to be effective and useful for the people of this continent, I think we need to consider the following aspects. One, let's see if we can develop digital platforms to facilitate registration, access to information, as well as transparency. Two, upscaling best practices in agricultural cooperatives to other economic and productive sectors can also be of some use for the continent. And three, review policies and legal frameworks to reflect the current and emerging needs of cooperative societies for poverty reduction as well as food security. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, with these few remarks, I wish you a very sounding success and fruitful deliberations. Thank you so much for listening. Karibuni sana.
Thank you very much, Excellence, a farmer, a reader, and actually the keynote speech or address centered around the role of cooperatives as a model for farmers doing the business. You've mentioned some of the key challenges the farmers are facing with regard to integration into food systems, limited resources, and how they are vulnerable to climate change. Some of the examples you've given for the Tanzanian case, actually we are here to witness. We have the CEOs and they are members of Tanzania Federation of Cooperatives. We have cooperatives, unions of Zanzibar, the farmers that have traveled all the way to attend this farmers forum. So the cooperatives are key in terms of delivering economic services to members. Those are mainly markets and access to finance and agricultural good practices. So now I would like to, we're going to the debate. I want to call the panelists. Please, as I call you or introduce you, you come forward. So I start with Dr. Babafemi Oyewole, who is the CEO of the Pan-African Farmers Organization. Then I call for Mr. Clarence Leno, who is the General Coordinator of UNIL in Haiti. Then I call Mr. Ishmael Sunga, my brother and the CEO of Southern Africa Confederation of Agricultural Union. And finally, Miss Rulamiso Mashumba, the regional lead for Africa Global Farmer Network in Zimbabwe. Please have a seat. Yeah, let me start with Pan-African Farmer Organization, and would like to hear from you as the CEO of the PAFO. So how can regional and continental farmer organization work together to improve farmers' access to climate financing and support the development of sustainable farming practices across Africa?
And you are again welcome to this important Farmers Forum. Talking about the cooperation of farmers organizations to really spur the development of the food systems in Africa. If you look at the setup of the Pan-African Farmers Organization, for instance, is born out of cooperation. Actually, it's a bottom-up organization with the national platforms and the regional platform and the continental platforms. So it is the desire of the founding fathers to make sure that the various platforms combine their voices together to be more able to influence policies in the agricultural sector, particularly concerning the challenges that farmers are facing in their activities. So Pan-African Farmers Organization itself is a model of cooperation among farmers to be able to incite the development of the agricultural sector and the farming activities. So this is how I think, and it is also an opportunity for us to come together and be able to give a common position, a common voice with respect to the challenges of climate change that is being fought by farmers and with respect to producing more food to feed the teeming population of Africa and the world. So when we are talking of cooperation, we are talking of uniting our voices and our resources to be able to influence policy, to be able to mobilize resources for the farmers to be able to increase their productivity and the production of foods to feed the teeming population of the world. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Babafemi. Mr. Clarence, we know that farm organizations are diverse and they need context-specific solutions. So the example from Haiti, how are the farm organizations organized there and how are they trying to cope or to adapt to the climate change?
Thank you. You said the word first, because I would like to take a moment to say how proud I am to be here in Africa, because I am from a country which is part of Africa, but we are living away from Africa, Haiti. Haiti has a great story, African story that made history. So this is a pleasure for me to be here and to be the first Haitian to speak in this forum. And I'm here to learn. I'm here to understand, and I'm here also to prepare the future of Haiti with connection with Africa, because this is important for us to come back to our motherland, Africa. Well, but now to your question, if I remember your question very well. And let me say also that I'm going to speak in French, as French is my first language in Haiti. So my English is not so good. I had to write something down, to be sure that I'm not, saying bad things here. And yeah, an IT, if you have, opportunity to understand that I'm saying in your language. En Haïti, les organisations de fermiers sont très faibles, je dirais. Very weak organization of farmers or cooperatives. pour plusieurs raisons. Parce qu'il y a un manque de financement pour les fermiers et les rares actions entreprises par les coopératives sont perdues parfois dans les crises politiques que Haïti est confronté très souvent à ces crises politiques. Donc, il y a un travail à faire et j'ai beaucoup appris ici, en venant ici. J'ai participé à plusieurs séances, à plusieurs sessions et j'ai compris qu'il y a un réel effort qui est fait ici pour faire avancer les choses et pour être inclusif aussi dans ce mouvement qui fait avancer l'agriculture et qui parle des changements climatiques. Alors, je voudrais profiter de ce microphone pour adresser un message à la population haïtienne, à mon peuple, au peuple à qui j'appartiens, où je suis originaire d'Haïti, pour dire que nous devons vraiment tirer des exemples de l'Afrique et de ce que fait l'Afrique pour prendre le train en marche. Cette transformation que j'ai constatée ici, la technologie, on parle beaucoup de technologie, alors que nous avons un faible niveau d'accès à la technologie en Haïti. Les données technologiques qui font bouger l'agriculture, l'investissement qui est disponible ici doit être aussi disponible en Haïti. Alors, je veux m'adresser aussi à l'ancien Premier ministre qui est là. As he's going to where he's, yeah. I want to say a few words to you, Prime Minister, parce que je crois que c'est important. C'est ma première visite en Tanzanie, pas ma première en Afrique, mais je voudrais prendre l'occasion pour demander au gouvernement tanzanien, dans sa politique de coopération, de penser à Haïti. Haïti a besoin de la coopération de l'Afrique, mais parce que je suis aussi ici en Tanzanie, Haïti a besoin de la coopération de Tanzanie dans les divers domaines de progrès que j'ai constatés ici. Premier ou deuxième producteur du riz en Afrique, premier producteur de grains aussi en Afrique. Donc je crois que Haïti a beaucoup à bénéficier d'une bonne coopération avec la Tanzanie et bien sûr avec l'ensemble des pays africains. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. I don't know if all of us were able to hear the message, but if I try to summarize that,
Asante.
He said that he's proud to be here. He's from Haiti. I think the introduction was in English, but the message that's in French is basically that in Haiti, farm organizations are weak, and that you should be able to understand because of prolonged conflicts that have hit Haiti, so makes the institution there to be weak. And actually, he's very happy to be here because he's running a lot. And the message to His Excellency, he's requesting the government of Tanzania, as you seek more collaboration, cooperation, probably you can think of also Haiti, because there is a lot they can learn from the Tanzania and the people from Tanzania. So I don't want to take much time, because we are actually behind the schedule. I want to ask our CEO from SACAO, how can farm organization collaborate with financial institutions and climate financing bodies like Green Climate Fund to facilitate the flow of financial resources to smallholder farmers? I'm sure that this is a topic that is key to you. And farm organization, you have been complaining or lamenting that the financing architecture of climate funds is not favorable to us. So probably now this is the chance for us to be able to tell the audience, what is your take?
Because I think we need to have the right framing first before we go to the nitty-gritties of how money is delivered to the farmers or other structures. So I think there have to be fundamental principles that needs to be put in place before we actually start doing things. Because if we don't do that, that's where we lose the game, I think, as farmers organizations as well as other people, because the rules of engagement would not have been established. And one of the principles of rules of engagement in a development context is really that it has to be fair and equitable. So any financing arrangements, in my view, in broadly speaking, climate financing or otherwise, you have to follow the rules of being ethical as well as equitable and open and transparent. And if we talk of climate finance, you find that those elements, in my view, are very missing. So as farmers organizations, perhaps we need to lend our voices to ensuring that we have a framing and a framework that governs how finance is managed and delivered to the people, which is open, which is transparent, and which is accountable. So I think that is part of the discussions that we should have, apart from the nitty-gritties of the money coming down. There are also ethical issues, at least from my perspective, that are to do with whether financing that is going towards poor people, that is, who are grappling to deal with a problem that they never caused themselves, whether it should actually be one that needs to be provided as credit. Because then it becomes, in my view, very unethical that poor people are grappling with a problem that they never caused, and someone is making money on the back of that. So my call would be that if it's climate financing, particularly one that is going towards adaptation, it should actually be grant financing, not commercial financing. Otherwise, you can't profiteer on the back of things that you actually are the one who caused it in the first place. That also, in my view, can be extended to the issue of sovereign debt. If a government is borrowing money that is going towards climate financing, particular adaptation, my view, and it's a personal view, but I'm sure it's a shareable view by farmers' organizations, that it should be grant funding. It should not be that people are now making, and international multilateral systems are now making money out of something that they should be making money from. So it's a call that I would encourage civil society, farmers' organizations, and the development sector in general to really talk about this. We don't want microcredit. In my view, we don't want commercial credit, as long as it is particularly going towards adaptation, particularly for the smallholder farmer. It is unethical, it is wrong. So that's another point. Related points would be the amounts of money themselves. We need as much money for as long as possible and as cheap money as possible if it has to be sold. Because the job at hand required is extensive, involves many people, and therefore the amounts of money that should be available for climate financing going towards the agricultural sector in general should be massive. As we understand at the moment, statistics show that very little money of climate financing is going in that direction. These should be conversations that farmers' organizations should be having at different levels with the powers that be to try and ensure that there's a good balance of money going towards adaptation and mitigation and other areas. And as a voice of farmers, really, at different stages, international or otherwise, we should be drumming up support for this kind of arrangement. We also need different types. It has to be horses for courses. If you are providing financing to those that are not able to make profit, then it should be concessionary or grant. You're basically condemning them to debt and to a life sentence. So that should not be encouraged. So we also need different sources, from multiple sources, from philanthropy, from commercial sector, and everything in between, because the job at hand is massive and it's going to be with us for a long time. I think those are some of the framing things that we need to. And also, given that money is never going to be enough, you really need to look at where do you deploy the money towards. And my rule of thumb is you deploy the money to where it gives you the biggest bang. And talking about farmers' organizations and farmers, particularly smallholder farmers, we need to be very strategic about where are our best bets. Is it operational financing or is it infrastructural financing? Is it about the backbone infrastructure or is it about this? So let's be very strategic in where we deploy the limited resources, because it's never going to be enough. I think we need a bit of framing and thinking around where is our biggest bets and where do we win better. Strategic areas. I always say that if you're trying to drop a bomb If you're trying to drop a bomb, you have to pick that target that causes the biggest damage. And where do we drop it in climate financing deployment terms? The final two questions really is if we look at the discussions on loss and damage, bringing it to climate change, we really need to be very careful about loss and damage financing. Where should it go? And it's a conversation that farmers' organizations should be directing. In my view, it should be going towards things that enable climate proofing. It could be weather infrastructure, it could be digital communication, because those are so critical in managing climate financing. It might not be going directly into the pocket of farmers because they won't be sufficient to go to all farmers, but it could go towards subsidization of maybe data and other things. The final point really is that as farmers' organizations, even as big industry, we might not be competent enough to put together the projects documentation that is required. Some big organizations actually have facilities to help them prepare for projects. If big organizations have that facility, what about farmers' organizations? What about smaller farmers? So we really need a project preparation facility that needs to support the applications and the process that is cumbersome, that is also very, very long, to be able to enable us to qualify for that. And the final point really is about, don't forget young generation of farmers. I think a good quarter of the money of climate financing needs to support a new generation of farmers, because quite often, and women of course, they become marginalized. So a quota system might help go in that direction. These are my quick thoughts. I left out a few that I could share with you, but let's engage, let's debate and see how far we can go. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know this is a topic you are passionate about. We can talk and talk, but we'll continue to engage. Let me go to my sister from Zimbabwe. We want to hear from the experiences from Zimbabwe. What are the inspiring examples of how farmers are successfully implementing climate smart practices, and how that kind of a knowledge can be shared to farmers across the continent?
Thank you very much for leaving the last comment to the farmer. So I'll speak as a farmer. You see, farmers are expected to adopt climate smart practices. We go to these discussions everywhere where everyone is saying farmers should adopt the climate smart practices, which is correct. But no one actually looks at the cost of adaptation, or is it mitigation? That is very expensive. For example, no-till planters. Farmers need to adopt. Most of us who have researched into no-till understand that no-till has better advantage to conventional farming. But when you look at the cost of the no-till planter, it's much, much higher than conventional planter. Yet the farmer is expected to absorb that cost. So I think it's something that we really need to look at. Who is going to pay for this adoption for climate smart practices? The Global Farmer Network is a network of farmers, just like a farmer organization, but it's got representation of farmers across the world who just come together and discuss some of these topics and share points. So when I became a member of the Global Farmer Network, I met farmers from Brazil, from Argentina, from the US, who have adopted no-till practices over 50 years. Yet here in Zimbabwe and a lot of parts of Africa, farmers have still not adopted because of the cost, which is very high. So my recommendation is that we can pick on examples like in Canada, what Canada has done with Kanza. So you can look it up later on. It's kanza.co.org, I think. What they've done is the Canadian Alliance for Net Zero Agriculture. So it's a blended finance, because most of the time we ask who will fund this, and we look at government. Like in the case of Zimbabwe, government is trying by Mfumfuza to support farmers to adopt by giving them inputs, but it's not really enough, because what they're doing is minimum tillage, where they dig holes and then try not to disturb the soil, and then they look for mulch in the forest or cut grass, And a lot of the times you hear the feedback is that a lot of these farmers are not really able to do the labor intensive practice because it's difficult. Farmers are aging, the very young youth are not available anymore in these rural areas. They can't find the mulch because of veld fires, the fire is burning, and also just the weight of carrying that. Yet no-till, you're actually using no-till planter. You don't have to cut any grass. You can just spray your glyphosate, and then it will be a live mulch, which then protects the soil from evaporation. But farmers can't afford to access this because of the cost, and the farmers are smallholder farmers. But we can find places where we can do group financing for 100 farmers where they can have access to these no-till planters. So I think as a continent, we really need to start looking at smallholder farmers not as poor and should only access the hand hoe. They should only use those primitive methods, but we should now look at how can they also benefit from better equipment and machinery. Then another example I can use from the Global Farmer Network is coming from a lady, Patience Kuku in Nigeria. What they've managed to do is work with organizations like the GIZ, where they are preparing for adoption, sort of like boot camp, where farmers are brought together and they're helped to become climate resilient. And then the organization pays for the cost for them to adopt. So this reduces the burden from the farmers to be able to incur this cost of self-financing of climate smart practices. So my call really is for when we discuss and talk at organizations or at forums like the AGRF, let's start having action plans on how are we going to actually take some of these discussions and actually start supporting those farmers. Those people who are in financing, how can you start looking at farmers in a way that you're able to fund them, some of these climate smart practices? Because without the finance, we can just continue having this discussion, but nothing will actually happen. Thank you.
Thank you very much. As we conclude, Dr. Bafemi, in half a minute, so what do you see as a role PAFO is playing to facilitate farm organization across the continent access the climate financing?
Thank you very much for the short time you have given to me. We know that the challenges that are facing the smallholder farmers in Africa to access climate finance include, number one, there is no information available to them about the sources of this funding. Not only that, we see that the capacity to even identify projects that qualify for climate financing is also very limited among these farmers. And again, the financial institutions in Africa that are even accredited to deliver these financial services, climate finance services, are very few in Africa. So we see that these are the challenges that they are facing. And what PAFO is doing is to develop the capacity of the farmers' organizations and the farmers. One of our strategic pillars is farming as a business, whereby we are looking at entrepreneurial development of farmers, that they will not only produce, but also they will think of adding value to the production. But they cannot do that if there is no adequate finance that they can access. So that is why climate finance is an additional finance to the traditional sources of finance that we are trying to build the capacity of farmers to access. Thank you.
Thank you. We would like, as you conclude, what message do you take from this AGRF, this Farmers Forum, to Haiti farmers?
Je voudrais souligner, Prime Minister, are you listening to me? In French, because I'm speaking in French, so yeah. J'ai remarqué certaines ressemblances, some similarities between Haiti and, Africa. Not only because we look like other, look like each other, because we are from the same roots. Mais je contemple aussi les progrès qui sont réalisés ici, et il m'est revenu en tête les difficultés auxquelles l'agriculture en Haïti est confrontée aujourd'hui. Par exemple, il n'y a pas une politique agricole réelle en Haïti. Ça manque. Une vraie politique qui définit l'agriculture sur l'avenir, en modernisant l'agriculture. Il n'y a pas de modernisation encore de l'agriculture en Haïti. L'agriculture n'est pas mécanisée en Haïti. On est encore à l'âge de la pierre presque. Avec les petits fermiers qui font des petits vergers, des petits jardins, mais il n'y a pas de production massive pour atteindre les besoins de l'autosuffisance alimentaire. We need to do that, to be self-sufficient. Et la deuxième chose que je voudrais souligner aussi, je ne sais pas si vous faites face à ce problème aussi en Afrique, c'est qu'il y a une aide étrangère qui peut venir aux pays en difficulté comme Haïti, mais cette aide peut aussi constituer un frein à l'évolution de l'agriculture. Par exemple, une aide trop massive, une aide humanitaire, alimentaire, de pays riches qui envoient vers un pays pauvre comme Haïti, mais ça tue les efforts pour lancer la production agricole. Donc il faut qu'un mécanisme soit trouvé pour, oui, faire venir l'aide, mais investir massivement dans l'agriculture pour permettre aux populations, comme aux populations haïtiennes par exemple, d'être autosuffisantes et de pouvoir produire pour l'ensemble des Haïtiens. Donc c'est ça que je retiens aussi par rapport à ce que j'ai entendu. Hier, j'ai participé à une soirée où on parle de financement de l'agriculture. Ceci n'est pas disponible en Haïti pour les petits fermiers. Il n'y a pas de financement, il n'y a pas de crédit disponible. Donc il faut, au lieu d'envoyer une aide massive alimentaire à un pays comme Haïti, mais c'est mettre de l'argent à la disposition des fermiers pour agrandir leur espace d'exploitation, mécaniser l'agriculture et arriver à l'autosuffisance alimentaire. Merci beaucoup.
Merci. In summary, he's seeing similarities of what we are experiencing here on the continent and what they have in Haiti. But throughout the sessions of this AGRF, he has been able to listen to different people and actually realize that Haiti has a lot to learn from the continent because first, they don't have good policies that are supporting the agricultural sector, but also how to turn around the external aid that goes to Haiti, because some of these humanitarian aid, they hinder the progress in terms of local production. So we thank you for your remarks, and I want to ask Ismail, so you talked about climate financing, but I didn't hear what you see the role of farm organization engaging the government in terms of unlocking the financing. Yeah, you have I'm under pressure from the coordinator, so please take less than a minute.
I thought as I was speaking, I was implying what roles and responsibilities farmers' organizations would have, because they aggregate voices and they do advocacy, and it should be advocacy around things that I highlighted. But if I was to make maybe a tweetable statement, I would say that the cost of finance, climate finance, cannot be borne by the farmers alone. It has to be the responsibility of everyone along the system and the chain, because its outcomes are of a public good nature. So it cannot be on the farmer, and not on the farmer, at least not on the farmer alone. The second and final quote could be that at least 80% of the climate finance should actually reach to the farmer. It cannot be caught up in the pipeline that is blocked. So we have a lot of money, maybe not enough coming down, but it then trickled down to less than maybe 20%. So my call is that let it be at least 80% that goes down to do things on the ground, and the rest be caught up in admin. Those will be my final words.
Thank you very much. And my sister, what can we do differently to make the information, the knowledge that is available to reach the smallholder farmers that are remote areas of our continent?
In terms of information, I think lots of young farmers, lots of smallholder farmers, young women, the mix, they understand that already, that there is the challenge of climate. And I don't know if we can say that the information should be available to them, but let's find ways, like Mr. Sunga said, to work with our smallholder farmers, instead of looking at them as poor farmers who should just wait for aid, who should look at primitive methods of farming, but let's see them as they are also part of this ecosystem that needs probably the greatest support, because unless we start supporting these smallholder farmers, we'll continuously see the impact of droughts and floods affecting our agriculture sector and affecting our farmers, and we will not move to a place of no hunger. we'll continuously have hungry people. So we need to be serious as stakeholders, as partners, in seeing that it's not a future we're envisioning which is far, far away. It's actually happening today at this very moment. Farmers are being affected badly by climate change. What can we all do to bring that change, which was needed yesterday? Thank you.
Thank you very much. A round of applause to our panelists as they exit the stage. And also we thank again His Excellence for the keynote address. And now I would like to hand over to Mrs. Mane Ngoma. If she's here, she can come forward to take us through the second part of this Farmers Forum. Thank you. Mrs. Mane. If Mrs. Manning is not here, so I apologize again. I will remain at the stage for the next couple of minutes as we go into the second part of this Farmers Forum, and it is my pleasure to invite the Mrs. Elizabeth Simadara, the President of Eastern African Farmers Federation, the Director of Pan-African Farmer Organization in charge of Women Affairs, and our representative of the continent in World Farmers Forum. So you are most welcome to give us a keynote speech.
So Your Excellency, Honorable Peter Kayanja, the former Prime Minister of the Republic of Tanzania, distinguished Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. I'm really very happy to see all of you here. Very excited that the room is full to capacity. So I take this opportunity to really, first of all, thank all of you for finding time to attend the Food Systems Summit, or what we are used to calling the AGRF 2023, here in this beautiful city of Dar es Salaam. But also in a very special way, I want to thank AGRA and the AGRF partners for having found it very fit to support us as farmers of this continent to congregate here, and today in particular to discuss issues relating to agriculture and food and farmers on this continent. Of course, this shows you the importance that AGRA and the AGRF partners attach to the agriculture sector. As already been introduced, I want to do a more detailed introduction. My name is Elizabeth Nsimadala. I'm a smallholder farmer and an agripreneur from a rural district of Bushenyi in southwestern Uganda. I chair the advisory board of the National Alliance of Agriculture Cooperatives in Uganda. I'm the president of the Eastern Africa Farmers Federation, the immediate past president of the Pan-Africa Farmers Organization, and currently in charge of Women Affairs. And I also represent Africa constituency on the board of World Farmers Organization. Why all these introductions? Just to show you that I have a mandate from the grassroots. I'm not just here speaking for a constituency that doesn't exist. I have a mandate that has been given to me by farmers who are here seated in this audience. And I'm happy that we are congregated here, all the farmers across the continent, from the south, the east, the central, the west, and the north of the continent, and most importantly, our hosts in Tanzania. I see the CEO of Tanzania Federation of Cooperatives, Agriculture Council of Tanzania, the board members. I see Cooperative Union of Zanzibar. I see members of Moviwata, members of TAHA, and others in this house. So I'm happy that Tanzania is also well represented at this Farmers Forum. So we need to know that the role of the farmer has been as tough, has never been as tough as it is today. Our role as farmers as we speak now, is very, very tough. And this is because of the unprecedented times that most of our speakers have spoke about, because of COVID, because of conflicts, because of climate change. And we all know that the sector is not cushioned at all. We don't have safety nets for the agriculture sector. The continent, as I speak now, is at crossroads, owing to the unsurmountable challenges it faces to feed itself, to secure jobs for the youth. We know we have the highest youth globally, percentage of youth globally, to have women access land and other factors of production, but also to deal with the risks of insecurity across the continents, among the many, many other challenges. And we, the farmers of Africa, under our Pan-Africa Farmers Organization, we've really worked so hard. We have invested in our farms. We have invested in building important partnerships with most of you in this room. And this is at different levels, starting at subnational, national, regional, continental, and even globally. We have also organized ourselves into associations and cooperatives. You heard the former Prime Minister speaking about the role of cooperatives in agriculture transformation. And we are happy that we've survived as cooperatives and farmers associations. We've been tested, but we've survived. As we speak now, TFC, the Tanzania Federation of Cooperatives, if I'm not mistaken, has the tallest building in Dar es Salaam. I think I'm right. And what does that mean? That as cooperatives and farmers organizations, we are very strong. We have a solid foundation. We've also done this to organize ourselves in cooperatives and farmers associations to have a collective bargaining power, so that every time we approach our partners, then we have a strong voice. Because for us, we don't believe on the size of our farms. You know, the agriculture sector in Africa, most of our farmers are doing their business on less than 2 hectares, but we believe in the strength of our numbers and the strength of aggregation. We have engaged in all manner of policy discourse. We have invested in building our capacity and skills as organizations in governance. That's why I'm here representing the farmers' constituency. But also in management. When you look at our secretariats, they're very professional. We've also invested in value chains, in food systems, name it. And we've also ensured that we achieve inclusivity in all our work, with women and youth taking a center stage. And at the forefront of our work, we have presented ourselves as credible institutions over the years. We are ready to work in mutually uplifting partnerships to restore the dignity of farmers and make agriculture work for this continent again. Ladies and gentlemen, these efforts have unfortunately not been collective and significant enough to secure our food security and sovereignty. That despite our investments, our governments have still relented on creating an environment suitable enough to attract the necessary long-term investments in agriculture, initially by failing to meet their own investment commitments that they made 20 years ago in Maputo, to allocate more than 10% of their annual budget to the agriculture sector. I want to commend the efforts by the government of the Republic of Tanzania. I know lately it's one of those states that has, I think, more than 100% increased their budget. But it's also because we have an understanding that, of course, the Republic of Tanzania is led by a woman president, and there is no woman who can, sacrifice to see their children go hungry. So, the question and the challenge I'm putting forward is that why are we investing so much in security and not in food, not in agriculture sector, just to protect our borders, which were created by the colonialists? Are we fair to ourselves enough? Yet we are one people and we are one Africa. We know that our continent is now importing food, which was not the case more than 20 years ago. And we are being told that our import bill could reach $100 billion by 2030. And yet we have 60% of arable land in Africa and the youngest youth population globally. Isn't this a shame to us as Africans and especially us as farmers? This week alone, thousands of people are attending this AGRF assembly here discussing food systems across the border. But also in Nairobi, we are seeing thousands attending the Africa Climate Summit and Week discussing climate mitigation and adaptation. You heard details of this from Ishmael. But today we have less talk about CADIP, the Comprehensive Agriculture, the Comprehensive Africa Agriculture Development Program, that was the blueprint to anyone wanting to invest in the continent. Whether a local or a foreigner, it defined the priorities, the opportunities, the support, and the partnership that lay in wait. Today, the leadership of the continent needs to double their efforts on matters of agriculture. As a lot of other new development themes have taken center stage at the detriment of our comprehensive Africa agriculture development policy, and as such, we see this divergence has created a new asymmetry of ideas, priorities, plans, resource allocations, diverse leadership. We seem to have lost traction and a unified direction. As leaders of African farmers, I want to call on you to voice these concerns to our Africa Union Commission, our other partners like FARA, like AGRA, that we need to renew the focus on agriculture before we get forgotten and substituted by other development partners. Ladies and gentlemen, as my colleagues engage with you in a health debate shortly, may I take this opportunity to reiterate that we are committed to make agriculture work for this continent. All we are seeking for as farmers is space to be heard, to be consulted. We are seeking for new partnership. We are seeking for access to information and technology and an enabling policy environment, innovations around finance, investments, and support of our ideas and programs through supporting our strategies and the farmer-led innovations. Finally, I don't know how many AGRA team members are in this house, but I would like to propose that we tailor this Farmers Forum to go beyond just the interaction among ourselves as farmers, because we have other platforms to do this. But also, the next time, be used as an opportunity to interrogate and give an oversight to the programs that are supported by AGRA to the various countries, thus providing some sort of a scorecard to these projects. If this demand is accepted, we can agree with AGRA on ways on which this mechanism can be prioritized. Thank you so much for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I think your speech is very clear, and your requests, I hope AGRA is here to hear that, so that the farm organization, we can expect a feedback to that request. Without further ado, I would like to call upon the farmer leaders to come on the stage. Dr. King David Amo, if you are here, come on the stage. The president of the Network of West African Farmers and Agricultural Producers Organization under ROPA. ROPA is the regional farmer organization in West Africa. So those want to call Mr. Philip Kirilo, who is the chairman, who is the past chairman of Eastern African Farmers Federation and the current board member, come forward. I would like to call Dr. Sinare Yusuf Sinare, the president of SACAO. I would like to call Mr. Drem Tieng Tuk Kul, the CEO. Sorry for the pronunciation. The CEO of PROPAC, which is the regional farmer organization in Central Africa, and Mr. Justin Shirma. If you are here, come forward, the managing director of Tanganyika Farmers Association. So we are entering the final part of this farmers forum, and the reader I have here in front. I would like that, because this being the farmers show, we are not guiding you very much, because we have a wealth of experience, starting with Mr. Philip Kiriro. So, as a board member of Eastern African Farmers Federation, what do you see as the role you as the leaders you are playing in terms of facilitating smallholder farmers' voice to be heard at different levels of engagement? Thank you.
There is still a lot that needs to be done to be able to see our farmers perform. And for us, it all actually starts with the understanding of why we are there. Because if you look at us as farm organizations, our core business is actually lobby and advocacy. That is key. And the lobby and advocacy we actually do changes with the time. It changes with the kind of strategic, strategy that we actually have. If you look at IAFU, East African Farmers Federation, our lobby is actually inclined towards economic services, understanding of value chains and getting farmers to business. So that is actually very important, that we are actually able to have a process that works in that particular manner. It is also important that as farm organizations, we are able to develop a constituency that is actually recognizable. Because when it comes to our focus on advocacy and policy change, you cannot be called upon unless you are worthwhile. And it can only happen if you are actually able to actually have in-house a strong constituency. And that's exactly why we as East African Farmers Federation have actually been working on this one, starting with our national organizations, by first and foremost ensuring that they actually handle issues of governance in a manner that is credible. Because any institution coming to work with even government would actually want to know whether you're actually a credible institution. So we work on governance at the board level, making sure that we have instruments that guide leadership in terms of general assemblies, in terms of the secretariat, in terms of ensuring that there's a board around the secretariat, make sure that is actually okay, and clear governance manuals. And beyond that, we have actually a roadmap that is actually managed through a strategic plan. So I think that is actually very important for us to be able to actually lobby. Now, to be able to also lobby, you need partnership. And as farm organizations, especially at the regional level, we have actually been able to fight for space in the regional economic communities, like in COMESA, in the East African community, like we have an MOU with the East African community, even Parliament, institutions like IGAD, Intergovernmental Authority on Development, covering our own region.
As we conclude this session, I would like to go back to Mr. Philip Kiriro. If you have any message, I give you 1 minute.
Mine is a call to our farm organizations, and borrowing that from the East African Farmers Federation. As our president actually mentioned, we don't like losing the basics. And that's why she actually went back to CADIP, because CADIP was the start of actually ensuring that agriculture and ministers of agriculture become an agribusiness process. That is very important. We do not want also to lose issues around land. And we have the African Initiative on Land, and there are processes on implementation. a lot of our small-scale farmers do not have legal rights to land. And we cannot tell them to manage climate change without ownership. So for us as East African Farmers Federation, that is key. As East African Farmers Federation, it is also very important that we ensure that we repackage ourselves anew all the time. For most of the time, our farmer organizations have actually been on lobby, and we need to continue with that. But we have actually been able to actually find space for a private sector entity within ourselves. Meaning that if you come to farm organizations, the East African Farmers Federation, even at national level, our membership, if you want a private sector player, is available. East African Farmers Federation has a company with an initiative driving it, and that is supposed to give the regional entity or farm organization a private sector, kind of, appearance. And beyond that, the issue of gender is very important. But finally, I know you are going to cut me short. The issue of climate change, and finance. For us as YAFU, we acknowledge the fact that we got into the climate, dialogue a bit late. And we have actually moved with speed to connect with those people that can actually get us into that process. Like PACSHA, which is actually a continental entity of non-government, of non-state actors working on climate. We have AGNES that has actually been able now to connect us with the negotiators. And we are happy that now, apart from having the previous negotiators coming from environment, now they have actually accepted to have negotiators on agriculture. And for us, that is key. So it means our lobby and advocacy can actually connect with those negotiators and make sure that now we have an understanding of issues around climate finance, and we are actually able to actually lobby adequately. This is key. But as Sakao said, from Ishmael and also from Dr. Senari, there is actually need to ensure that we support farmers in a manner that it is not expensive, because the climate change, the climate issues are real, and we have been dealing with them. Like South Africa started early with the climate smart agriculture. East African Farmers Federation is actually on it, and many other farmers within the continent. So for me, that is key, that we make sure that we don't lose the basics. We actually keep energizing the basics so that we can actually be able to move forward with adequate momentum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sinare.
Mine is short. Climate change is real. We have to get ready to confront it. The smallholder farmer is here to stay. We have to organize the smallholder farmers so that they adopt new technologies, new innovations to either adopt or mitigate climate change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Drem.
En lien avec le financement du changement climatique, moi je recommanderais qu'il faudrait que nos États insèrent le changement climatique dans les budgets annuels. Que nous n'ayons pas à toujours parler de ça simplement en l'air et attendre que les fonds viennent d'ailleurs. On doit intégrer ça dans les budgets annuels et en même temps travailler à former les producteurs à prendre conscience de cette situation, mais aussi à rechercher ce financement-là. Mais il faut que ça soit un problème national, que ça soit intégré dans le budget national, que ça ne soit pas quelque chose qu'on cherche l'argent en l'air. Merci.
Thank you very much. We applaud them as they leave the stage. And finally, Dr. Babafemi for our 2 minutes closing remarks for this Farmers Forum.
Thank you, Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It is just my role to just thank you for being with us for this Farmers Forum. The Farmers Forum, we have been collaborating with AGRAS to really make sure that the voice of farmers are heard in a global gathering like this. And I think that the discussions we have had this morning are very interesting and also showing to us the challenges that the farmers are facing particularly with respect to the climate issue. So I want to thank all the presenters, the panelists, the keynote speakers, and every one of us for coming here. And the key messages that we have heard from our panelists, we think we can take them away. And then as our president from EIFF said, I think next year we're going to have more innovation in the way we deliver the forum. Thank you once again, and I wish you all the panelists and what said we should come to the stage for group photograph, and including the keynote speakers. Yeah, everybody should come for group photograph before we go. Once again, I thank every one of you for finding the time. I hope that next edition we see welcome you to our midst. Thank you very much.